Welcome back. We're going to talk about the anatomy of an apology, and I'm really looking forward to this one. Why is it that something so simple as an apology can cause such a stir when they are made publicly? It's because people get it wrong so much. From a media literacy perspective, you want to know, is this for real? Like, if is this apology believable? Maybe you have to write an apology for somebody as a budding public relations person, but I think it just also helps for us to kind of remind ourselves what should be in an apology in order to make it believable by anyone. This isn't so we manipulate, even though public relations is essentially manipulation. It's about trying to reach your objective through the means of words and visuals and a campaign. There's so many strategic ingredients that go into something like a campaign, a PR campaign. But an apology, oof, reputational management, crisis management. Most people would advise somebody not to apologize publicly only because you're going to be held to everything that you've said. And also, you're going to be really dissected for everything that you've said and how you've said it. So let's talk about an apology, the anatomy of it. And just a quick reminder, I am Serena. On this channel, on my channel, I speak about media, digital, and political literacy. I also provide media and political commentary, and I bring my expertise as a chartered public relations practitioner, as well as a systems thinking practitioner in progress. It's wonderful. I'm studying at a master's level, and I absolutely adore it. It really gives you more ways to zoom out and use all kinds of methodologies to look at different situations and problems. So let's get to this now. The first episode was about the media and who's really in control. The second was about the overdose of information that we get on a daily, on the regs. Third was about copywriting, how they convince you. The fourth episode was why media literacy is so important. It's about kind of like, again, just looking at the why. And in this, I'm going to talk about the anatomy of an apology. Now, there is such a stir going on at the moment, and it will probably age, so I won't mention who, because this is evergreen, essentially evergreen content. This is always going to be relevant. So I don't want to bring up any sort of case study as such, but I'm sure you can think of more than one public figure who has recently, lately, or in the recent sort of like, let's say, years, come out with an apology and just got it completely wrong. So how are you going to believe somebody? Like, how can you spot, this person and their apology is legitimate? I feel it, I can sense it. Now, the first thing is, and it's really an intangible, it's like your intuitive sense, if you believe there is such a thing. You will just feel it and sense it. It might not, the apology might not have all the ingredients that I'm going to go through, but there's an initial sort of effort. There's a sense that, okay, this person is sincere. They've thought about it. They might not have gotten the delivery right, but they appear to be real in their sort of feelings, in their words, in their emotion, like how they are emoting. And so if you can sense it, that's great. Then perhaps you can also sort of like take a step back and critically examine whether that feeling that you're getting is like a legitimate feeling, in the sense that, are you being influenced by anything? So, you've got to challenge that assumption. Um, Even if you trust your intuition, you still got to do your own checks and balances. So that's the intuition side out of the way. Now let's get to the ingredients. Remorse. Someone's got to be able to express that they're actually sorry, like they feel sorry, like you can sense it, that they can also show and express remorse through the words that they use, and they can do that by reiterating in their own words the impact of their actions, and try again to put themselves in your shoes, or whoever's shoes, whoever they've done wrong by. Are they truly able to do that? Could probably confirm for you whether or not there's actual remorse there. Are they? Can you, again, from the words that they're using? I am deeply. You could even say, are they informal with the language? Are they scripted? As I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking, okay, hang on. Thinking about scripted apologies, and I'm thinking about, if you know what you want to say, you just need a guide, then you have some bullet points. And then when it comes to turning on the camera and having to apologize to your following or whoever it is, or face to face, you just need to riff a little bit. So I would look whether there is that sort of element of, okay, this person isn't so scripted. So there's got to be remorse. You've got to sort of be able to spot if somebody is actually able to put themselves in someone else's shoes. There's got to be recognition or acknowledgement. It's the same thing: recognition, acknowledgement of what's actually being done and what the result is. So, recognition of the action, and then recognition of the result, acknowledgement of the wrongdoing, and then acknowledging what came about as a result. And if that's not there, then it's very hard to be able to accept the apology, because it's almost like the person has not even thought about the incident, about their sort of participation in it, and what their actual action was, and what it is. And so make sure, um, if you're doing the apology or you're writing it for somebody or whatever, spell it out. Like, really put the detail in there. Put the detail in there, unless your lawyer advises you not to. Um, the next thing is responsibility, accountability. Now, this has to be demonstrated. It can't just be said. I will take accountability. I aim to be take responsibility. I am responsible for my own actions. This is on me. Like, all of these sort of words, they are just words. An apology is far better when the responsibility and accountability is demonstrated. So somebody taking responsibility for what they did, so that's the recognition bit beforehand, means that they're not making excuses. They're not blaming it on dark times. They're not blaming it on their past or their childhood or their trauma or on politics or on poverty or on being famous. They've got to be just, regardless of the stresses, the strains of whoever's life and whatever the lifestyle is, you've still got to be responsible for your own actions. Next is assurance. Is there any? Is there any assurance? Is there are there any words, or is there any expression of, I'm not going to do this again, or this is what I need to do in order for this not to happen again, rather than just saying, yes, I did this in order to apologize. I've done therapy, or I sought help, or I am in counseling, or I reflected for a long time. That's sort of like, okay, I've done this behind the scenes, but what's the assurance? Because remember, if an apology is having to be given, it means that you're going to have to provide assurance to the person that, again, not only that you're remorseful, that you recognize what you've done, that you're responsible for it, but you have to assure them that it's not going to happen again. And what are the exact ingredients sort of required for that thing not to happen again? Otherwise, just don't bother. Just don't bother saying anything. The last thing, action. Action. This can also mean compensation, It can also mean the next steps, um, because you can say you can, it's not the same thing as assurance, because assurance is, this is what I'm doing in order to avoid it happening again. But I also have next steps, and my next steps are this. So, are you compensating the victim? Are there any victims? Are you compensating anybody? Does anybody require compensation? Is there transparency with that? When it comes to reputation, there's got to be a little bit more planning and next steps involved. So, if you look at a sort of a micro example, if it's an apology in a relationship, from a reputational perspective, it's about trust. And you've got to ensure that short and long term, you're watching your P's and Q's, right? So that's in a relationship. That's what the reputational bit is. It's about re-establishing trust from a brand, PR, reputational management perspective. You're going to have to be quite watchful over your actions, or things that you do and say over the coming, I don't know, 2, 3 financial quarters. So that would be at least, 6 to 9 months. As an example, after the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case, very public case, what did we see Johnny Depp doing? He recorded a song and then he went into his art world. And that's it. So again, this isn't an opinion on who was wrong and who was right and what the wrongdoing was, but from a reputational perspective, it's probably the right thing to do, even if the court found that Johnny Depp wasn't in the wrong, right? The idea is, you've been quite public. You've been in, he that was probably not the best example because he didn't have to apologize for anything. Nobody really apologized there. But it's a way to sort of manage your reputation after an incident. And that is, you can disappear for a while, but if you are going to appear, if you are going to be seen, then make sure you're seen doing the right things. And those are your next steps in order to manage your reputation. Now, I know it seems a little bit, well, a lot bit manipulative, but that is unfortunately the side of reputation management in public relations, that you do have to sort of orchestrate a little bit and engineer these situations. But I mean, I'd love to hear from you, because if you're not a PR person, you have ideas about how best to demonstrate um, your sort of the assurance bit, about how you assure somebody in your apology, and then short and long term rebuilding trust, especially if you're a brand or you're a public figure and you have to re-establish trust with your following and with all your stakeholders. Your stakeholders could be anyone. It could be your sponsorships, your partners, your business colleagues, your clients, your fans, your customers. You've got to re-establish trust across all of those segments of your sort of stakeholder audience, sort of like bubble, if you like. And your next steps have to be transparent. Like, there's got to be some visibility. Otherwise, they won't buy it. And they could just go back on, you know, it's such a fickle place online, and everywhere really, but it is fickle in the sense that, somebody can just change their mind about you the very next day. And so you've got to think about how you can keep people's hearts and minds in a place of security, that they can sort of trust you, even though you've shown weakness, or you've made a mistake, or you have failed. There are so many good examples of people who do this brilliantly and transparently. And again, I don't want to bring up case studies because I don't want to date this video, and also it might not be the best example, but I did just see something recently and it's just come to mind. And this has got nothing to do with anyone doing anything wrong or bad, but it's a way to show, sort of like transparently show your accountability, especially if you can hide that stuff behind the scenes. So there's a YouTube creator called Ali Abdal, who is also a doctor, and he's built himself quite the following and multiple businesses. And he quite transparently, like I haven't seen his videos in a while, but he quite transparently put out a video recently saying, I failed at this business and it was really embarrassing. It was humiliating. He's shown how he's lost money. He got a bad review from a reviewer online. It was a sort of like a mechanical keyboard, I think. And it was, I only watched the first 5 or so minutes, but what was refreshing about that is that he came across really human. He was like, I put £300,000 or dollars into it. I've only made like $40,000 or pounds or whatever back. It's essentially a loss, and lost confidence in this product. And that's the kind of transparency. So you will probably be more inclined to stay sort of like subscribed, or you would still trust that person because they have been transparent in their process or their sort of thinking or their next steps, the assurance bit. So that's it. Let's just leave it there. I'd love to hear from you. The comment section is always the best. I really enjoy my comment section. I love my YouTube community for that reason, because we really get into conversations that are quite difficult and challenging, and I appreciate that. It's very constructive. So I would love to hear from you in the comments. And yeah, there's more episodes to come in this series. I haven't thought of a name for this series, or if it's a podcast, let's see how it gets packaged at the end. But there's more to come. And if you feel like this content about being more media literate is useful, regardless of whether or not you're a PR, a budding PR pro, or somebody who works in the media, or you are an audience person, like it's about being a consumer of information. Regardless, if you find it useful, then please share it. And if you haven't already, subscribe. You can do multiple things. I have multiple things available in the description, so please go ahead, check that out, and I will see you in the next video.